Philip Parker wiped the sweat from his brow as he tightened the last bolt on the Romulan spacecraft's engine. He stepped back, surveying his work with a satisfied nod. Another day, another job well done. But the Romulans barely acknowledged his efforts, their eyes filled with disdain. To them, he was just another lowly human, a primitive creature unworthy of their respect. Exhausted, Philip trudged back to his cramped apartment, longing for the comfort of his loyal companion, Max. But as he pushed open the door, an eerie silence greeted him. No happy barks, no wagging tail. Panic rising in his chest, Philip searched every room, calling out Max's name. Nothing. Desperate, he raced outside, combing the dimly lit alleys of the Romulan homeworld. And there, in a pool of crimson blood, lay Max's lifeless body, a gaping wound from a Romulan weapon seared into his flesh. Rage and grief consumed Philip as he cradled his beloved dog. His heart shattered into a million pieces. He marched into the Romulan authorities' office, demanding answers, demanding justice. But Commander Juno, a smug Romulan with an air of superiority, merely dismissed him. "The beast was a threat," Juno sneered. "The matter is closed." Philip's hands clenched into fists, his anger boiling over. He stormed out, his mind racing. He had to do something, anything, to make the Romulans pay for what they'd done, but he was just one man, one human, on an alien world that despised his kind. With nowhere else to turn, Philip sought out the small human community on Romulus Prime. They had to stick together, to find a way to fight back against the Romulans' cruelty. Because if they didn't, Max's death would be just the beginning. The Romulans would continue to trample on their rights, their dignity, until there was nothing left of the human spirit. It was time for Earth to take a stand, to show the galaxy what happens when you mess with one of their own, and Philip would be damned if he let Max's death be in vain. In the dark alleys of Romulus Prime, Philip spoke to hushed crowds of humans, sharing his plan for rebellion against the Romulans who had wronged him and his people for so long. A muscular man with a grizzled beard stepped out from the shadows. It was Mike Thompson, a former soldier who had fought in the Romulan Wars. "I'm with you, Philip. It's time we take back what's ours." Samantha Reeves, a young woman with piercing green eyes and a knack for hacking, emerged from the crowd. "There's an old Earth ship, the USS Retribution, hidden in a bunker under the city. The Romulans captured it years ago, kept it as some kind of trophy. But I think I can get us inside." Under the cover of night, Philip, Mike, and Samantha snuck into the underground hangar. Samantha's fingers flew across her holopad, disabling security systems and unlocking doors. At last, they stood before the Retribution, a massive warship from a bygone era. As they boarded the ship, a voice echoed through the corridors. "Welcome aboard the USS Retribution. I am Athena, the ship's artificial intelligence. How may I assist you?" Philip's heart raced. With an AI on their side, they might just stand a chance. "Athena, we need to get this ship off Romulus Prime. Can you help us?" "Affirmative, initiating launch sequence." But as the engines roared to life, the hangar doors burst open. Commander Juno stormed in, a squad of Romulan soldiers at his heels. "Step away from the controls, human scum." Laser fire erupted in the hangar. Mike grabbed a plasma rifle from the ship's armory and returned fire, giving Philip and Samantha cover as they rushed to the bridge. Athena's voice rang out. "Launch sequence complete. Engaging thrusters." The Retribution blasted out of the hangar, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Philip collapsed into the captain's chair, his heart pounding. They had done it. They had the ship. And now they were heading home, to Earth, to gather allies and bring the fight back to the Romulans. But the battle was far from over. As the Retribution hurtled through space, Philip knew that Commander Juno would not rest until he had hunted them down. The Romulans would come for them, with all the might of their empire, and when they did, Philip would be ready. For Max, for the humans on Romulus Prime, for the chance to finally make things right. As the stolen Romulan warship streaked away from Romulus Prime, Philip slumped back in the captain's chair, his heartbeat slowing. They had made it. The Retribution was theirs. But their troubles were only beginning. Athena, status report, Philip barked. The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. All systems are functioning optimally, Captain Parker. However, I must inform you that this vessel is not a standard Romulan warship. It is a prototype, equipped with advanced technology that was part of a classified Earth defense project. Philip's eyes widened. He turned to Samantha, who was furiously typing away at a console. Sam, can you confirm this? Samantha nodded, her gaze fixed on the screen. It's true, this ship has an experimental faster-than-light drive, unlike anything I've ever seen, and the weapons systems, they're light years ahead of anything the Romulans have. A grin spread across Philip's face. This changes everything. With this ship, we can demand justice for Max and every other human who suffered under Romulan rule. We can protect Earth from any alien threat. Mike, who had been standing guard at the bridge entrance, suddenly tensed. Guys, we've got company. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a fleet of Romulan ships fast approaching. At the head of the formation was a massive battle cruiser, its hull emblazoned with the Romulan insignia. Philip Parker, a familiar voice boomed over the comms. This is Commander Juno. Surrender the Retribution immediately or face the consequences. Philip's hands clenched into fists. Athena, can we outrun them? Affirmative, Captain. Engaging FTL drive now. The stars on the view screen streaked into lines as the Retribution leaped forward, leaving the Romulan fleet far behind. But Philip knew this was only a temporary reprieve. Juno would not rest until he had reclaimed the ship and crushed the human rebellion. As they raced towards Earth, Samantha made a startling discovery in the Retribution's databanks. Philip, you need to see this, she said, her voice trembling. The Romulans, they're planning to conquer other alien races. They want to establish a galactic empire, with themselves at the top. Philip's blood ran cold. Max's death had been just the beginning. If the Romulans succeeded in their plans, countless innocent lives would be lost. The Retribution was no longer just a means to secure justice for one man's loyal companion. It was the key to saving the galaxy from Romulan tyranny. The Retribution shuddered as another volley of Romulan weapons fire slammed into its shields. Philip gripped the armrests of the captain's chair, his knuckles turning white. They had been playing this deadly game of cat and mouse with Juno's fleet for hours, darting in and out of FTL, always staying one step ahead of their pursuers. But they couldn't keep this up forever. Shields at 50%, Captain, Athena reported, her voice as calm as ever. We cannot sustain this level of damage for much longer. Philip gritted his teeth. They needed a plan, and fast. Athena, are there any nearby systems where we could lose them? The AI paused for a moment, scanning her databases. There is a dense asteroid field in the Zeta Draconis system, approximately 2.3 light-years from our current position. The field's high metal content should interfere with the Romulan sensors, making it difficult for them to track us. Set a course, Philip ordered. Mike, Sam, I need you to man the weapon stations. If the Romulans follow us in, we'll need to be ready to fight our way out. The Retribution banked hard to port, its engines flaring as it leaped into FTL once more. Moments later, they dropped back into normal space, the view screen filled with a swirling mass of rocks and debris. Philip held his breath as they plunged into the heart of the asteroid field, the ship shuddering as its shields deflected the occasional impact. Romulan fleet emerging from FTL, Athena warned. They are attempting to lock onto our position. Philip watched the tactical display, his heart pounding. The Romulan ships were fanning out, searching the asteroid field sector by sector. It was only a matter of time before they were found. Suddenly, Samantha's console beeped urgently. Philip, I'm picking up a distress signal. It's coming from deeper inside the field. Philip hesitated. They were in no position to mount a rescue mission. But if there were other humans out there, trapped and in need of help... Athena, can you pinpoint the source of the signal? Affirmative, Captain. It appears to be emanating from a small asteroid approximately 500 kilometers from our position. Philip made his decision. Take us in, Athena, carefully. We can't afford to draw the Romulans' attention. As the Retribution picked its way through the treacherous field, Philip couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into even greater danger. But he had made a promise, to himself and to Max. He would fight for humanity, no matter the cost, even if it meant risking everything on a desperate gamble in the depths of space. The distress signal led them to a massive asteroid, its surface pitted and scarred from countless impacts. As they drew closer, Philip's eyes widened in disbelief. There, nestled in a crater on the asteroid's far side, was a small human settlement, ramshackle buildings huddled together, their metal walls glinting in the starlight. "Athena, open a channel," Philip ordered. He took a deep breath, then spoke. "This is Captain Philip Parker of the USS Retribution. We're here to help." For a moment there was only silence. Then a woman's voice crackled over the comms. "Thank God. We thought no one would ever find us. My name is Dr. Elena Romero. We're a group of human scientists who were studying this asteroid field when the Romulans attacked. We've been hiding here ever since." Philip's mind raced. If the Romulans discovered this settlement, they would slaughter everyone, just like they had killed Max. He couldn't let that happen. Not again. "Dr. Romero, we can offer you protection aboard the Retribution. But we need to act quickly. The Romulans are searching for us, and it's only a matter of time before they find this place." There was a pause. Then Dr. Romero's voice returned. "We accept your offer, Captain Parker, but there's something you should know. We've discovered something on this asteroid, something that could change the course of the war against the Romulans. We call it the Prometheus device." Philip leaned forward in his chair, his heart pounding. "What does it do?" "It's a weapon, Captain, one of unimaginable power. If the Romulans ever got their hands on it—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Philip understood all too well. The Retribution's advanced technology had given them a fighting chance against the Romulans, but this Prometheus device? It could be the key to everything. The key to saving humanity, to avenging Max, to stopping the Romulans once and for all. "Dr. Romero, we're coming to get you. And the device. Athena, prepare for a rapid extraction. Mike, Sam, I need you to keep those Romulan ships off our backs. This is going to be a close one." As the crew scrambled to their stations, Philip felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. This was what he had been fighting for, all these years. A chance to make a difference. A chance to be the hero that Max had always believed him to be. The Retribution dove towards the asteroid, its shields flaring as it plowed through the debris field. The Romulan ships were close behind, their weapons slicing through the void. But Philip had faith in his crew, in his ship. They would get through this. They had to. For Max, for humanity, for the future. The Retribution hurtled through the void, racing towards Earth with its precious cargo of information and human refugees. But as they neared the outer reaches of the Sol system, an urgent distress call crackled over the comm channels. "Mayday! Mayday! This is the human colony on Proxima Centauri B. We are under attack by Romulan forces. They're slaughtering us. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help." Philip's hands tightened on the armrests of the captain's chair. They were so close to reaching Earth, to finally delivering the intel that could turn the tide against the Romulans. But he couldn't ignore the desperate plea for aid. He had sworn to protect humanity, no matter the cost. "Athena, set a course for Proxima Centauri B maximum FTL." The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. "Acknowledged, Captain. Estimated time of arrival, 15 minutes. As the Retribution dropped out of FTL above the embattled colony, the view screen filled with a scene of utter devastation. Romulan warships hung in orbit, raining down plasma fire on the settlement below. Columns of smoke rose from the ruins of once thriving habitats, while the twisted wrecks of human defense fighters drifted lifelessly in space. Philip's jaw clenched. "Samantha, target those Romulan ships. Mike, prepare a boarding party. We're going in." The Retribution's advanced weapons systems thrummed to life, lancing out with beams of searing energy that sliced through the Romulan shields like a hot knife through butter. The enemy ships reeled under the onslaught, their hulls buckling and spilling debris into the void. Philip led the charge onto the nearest Romulan destroyer, his pulse rifle spitting plasma bolts as he fought his way through the corridors. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of charred flesh, but he pressed on, his mind focused on a single goal: find the Romulan captain and put an end to this slaughter. He burst onto the destroyer's bridge, flanked by Mike and a squad of human marines. The Romulan crew fought back with desperate ferocity, but they were no match for the battle-hardened humans. In a matter of minutes, the bridge was secure, and the Romulan captain lay sprawled at Philip's feet, blood seeping from a wound in his chest. "It's over," Philip growled, leveling his rifle at the fallen Romulan. "Call off your ships, now." The captain spat a mouthful of green blood onto the deck. "You think this is over, human? You have no idea what's coming. The Romulan Star Empire will crush your pathetic species beneath its heel, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Philip's finger tightened on the trigger, but he forced himself to stay his hand. He needed this Romulan alive to extract every scrap of intelligence he could about the Empire's plans. "Mike, secure the prisoner. Samantha, download everything you can from their computers. We need to know what the Romulans are up to." As the Retribution pulled away from the battered colony, leaving a small contingent of human marines to help with the rebuilding efforts, Philip pored over the data they had retrieved. What he found chilled him to the bone. The Romulans weren't just planning to subjugate humanity, they were preparing for an all-out war of conquest, one that would see them dominate the entire galaxy. And at the heart of their plans was a name that kept appearing again and again: Project Nemesis. Philip's hands tightened into fists. Whatever Project Nemesis was, he knew it spelled doom for humanity and every other free species in the galaxy. They had to stop it, no matter the cost. "Athena, set a course for Earth. We have to warn them." As the Retribution leaped into FTL once more, Philip couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against time itself, and with Commander Juno still dogging their heels, he knew that every light year would be a battle. But he was ready for the fight, for Max, for the colony they had saved, for the future of humanity itself. He would not rest until the Romulan threat was ended once and for all. He had always believed in the superiority of his species, in their right to rule the stars. But now, faced with the reality of the suffering they had inflicted, he felt doubt creeping into his heart. The hunt for the Retribution would continue, and when he caught them, he would show the humans the true might of the Romulan Star Empire, even if it meant sacrificing everything he had once believed in. As the Retribution dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of Earth's solar system, Philip's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and dread. He had finally made it home, but the battle was far from over. With a deep breath, he opened a secure channel to the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. "This is Captain Philip Parker of the USS Retribution, requesting an urgent meeting with UEDF High Command. I have critical intelligence regarding an imminent Romulan threat to Earth and her colonies." The response was not what he had hoped for. A stern-faced admiral appeared on the view screen, his brow furrowed with skepticism. "Captain Parker, your unauthorized actions have caused quite a stir. You stole a Romulan prototype warship and engaged in hostile actions against their forces. The Romulans are demanding your immediate surrender." Philip's jaw tightened. "Admiral, with all due respect, the Romulans are not to be trusted. They killed my dog, they've oppressed humans on Romulus Prime, and they're planning to conquer the galaxy. I have proof." The Admiral sighed. "Captain, we can't afford to escalate tensions with the Romulans based on the word of one man. We've maintained a fragile peace with them for decades. Your actions could jeopardize that." Frustration boiled within Philip. He had risked everything to bring this information to Earth, and now they were too afraid to act. He slammed his fist on the armrest of his chair. "So, we just sit back and let them slaughter us, let them subjugate other races. We have to take a stand." The Admiral's face hardened. "Stand down, Captain, that's an order. Return the Retribution to Earth immediately, and we'll handle this through diplomatic channels." Philip cut the transmission, his mind racing. He couldn't just give up, not after everything he had been through. He turned to his crew, his eyes blazing with determination. "We can't let them bury the truth. We have to expose the Romulans' true intentions, once and for all. Samantha leaned forward, her fingers dancing across the console. I might have an idea. The data we recovered from the Romulan destroyer mentioned a secret military installation in the Gamma Hydra system. If we could infiltrate the facility and gather more evidence... Philip nodded. It's a risk, but it's our best shot. Athena, plot a course. Mike, prepare the weapons systems. We're going in. As the Retribution leaped back into FTL, Philip knew he was defying direct orders. But he had made a promise to Max, to the humans on Romulus Prime, to himself. He would not rest until the Romulan threat was exposed and humanity was safe, even if it meant sacrificing his own career, his own freedom. The Retribution dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Gamma Hydra system, the sleek lines of the Romulan military installation looming before them. Philip's heart pounded as he surveyed the sprawling complex of hangars, sensor arrays, and weapons platforms. Somewhere within those walls lay the key to unraveling the Romulans' nefarious plans. Athena, scan for potential entry points and vulnerabilities in their defenses, Philip ordered, his eyes locked on the view screen. The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. Analysis complete. The facility's shields are heavily fortified, but I have detected a small gap in their coverage near the primary hangar bay. A precision strike with our phase cannons should create an opening large enough for a small boarding party to penetrate the base. Philip nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. Good work, Athena. Mike, Samantha, you're with me. We'll infiltrate the base and download as much data as we can from their central computer core. With any luck, we'll find the evidence we need to convince Earth of the Romulans' true intentions. The Retribution shuddered as its phase cannons unleashed a barrage of concentrated fire, the searing beams of energy slicing through the Romulan shields like a scalpel. Alarms blared across the enemy base as the facility's defenses scrambled to respond to the sudden attack. Philip, Mike, and Samantha raced through the smoking hole in the hangar bay doors, their weapons at the ready. Romulan soldiers poured out from every corridor, their disruptor rifles spitting deadly green bolts of energy. The humans dove for cover, returning fire with precise bursts from their pulse rifles. Philip felt the adrenaline surging through his veins as he downed one Romulan after another, their bodies crumpling to the deck in sprays of emerald blood. "Push forward," he shouted over the din of battle. "We need to reach the computer core." Inch by hard-fought inch, the trio battled their way deeper into the heart of the installation, leaving a trail of Romulan corpses in their wake. Samantha's hacking skills made short work of the locked doors and security systems barring their path, while Mike's raw strength and combat prowess kept the enemy at bay. At last, they burst into the central data vault, a cavernous chamber filled with rows upon rows of humming computer banks. Samantha rushed to the nearest terminal, her fingers flying across the keys as she worked to breach the Romulans' encrypted files. "I'm in!" she declared triumphantly, her eyes scanning the cascading lines of data. "Philip, you need to see this. The Romulans, they're not just planning to conquer other worlds. They're developing a doomsday weapon, something called the Red Matter device. If they succeed..." Philip's blood ran cold. He had seen firsthand the cruelty and ruthlessness of the Romulan regime. If they possessed a weapon of such destructive power, no force in the galaxy could stand against them. Suddenly the chamber shook with a deafening explosion, showering the humans with sparks and debris. A towering figure emerged from the smoke, his face twisted with rage. It was Commander Juno, his once pristine uniform scorched and tattered from the battle raging outside. "Philip Parker," he snarled, leveling his disruptor at Philip's chest. "Did you really think you could defy the might of the Romulan Empire and live?" Philip raised his own weapon, his eyes narrowing. "It's over, Juno. We have the evidence we need to expose your plans. Surrender now, and maybe the UEDF will show you mercy." Juno laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Mercy? You humans and your naive ideals. The strong do not show mercy to the weak. They crush them beneath their heel, as we will crush your pathetic species." With a roar of fury, Juno charged forward, his disruptor blazing. Philip rolled to the side, the searing beams missing him by inches. He came up firing, his pulse rifle stitching a line of smouldering holes across Juno's armor. The Romulan staggered back, green blood seeping from his wounds, but still he pressed on, his eyes alight with fanatical rage. "For the glory of the Empire!" he bellowed, lunging at Philip with a crackling energy blade. Philip met him head-on, his own combat knife flashing in the dim light of the data vault. The two warriors clashed in a whirlwind of steel and sparks, their blades locked in a deadly embrace. With a final desperate surge of strength, Philip drove his knife deep into Juno's chest, the razor-sharp edge piercing the Romulan's heart. Juno's eyes widened in shock and pain, his lifeblood pouring out onto the cold metal floor. As the Romulan commander breathed his last, Philip staggered back, his chest heaving with exertion. Mike and Samantha rushed to his side, their faces etched with concern. "Philip, we need to go," Samantha urged, her voice tight with urgency. "I've downloaded everything I can, but the Romulans are sure to have called for reinforcements. We'll be trapped if we don't leave now." Philip nodded, his gaze still fixed on Juno's lifeless body. The Romulan had been a formidable foe, a true believer in his empire's cause, but in the end, even he could not stand against the indomitable will of humanity. As the trio raced back through the embattled corridors of the installation, Philip's mind churned with the implications of their discovery. The red matter device, the Romulans' plans for galactic conquest. It was worse than he had ever imagined. But now, armed with the truth, he knew what he had to do. He would take this evidence back to Earth, back to the UEDF High Command. He would make them see the true face of the enemy, the depths of the Romulans' depravity. And if they still refused to act, if they still clung to their naive hopes of peace and diplomacy, then Philip would take matters into his own hands. He had the retribution, he had his crew, and he had the burning desire for justice that had driven him all this way. As the sleek human warship blasted away from the smouldering ruin of the Romulan installation, Philip knew that his fight was far from over. But he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. For Max, for the humans on Romulus Prime, for the future of the galaxy itself. He would not rest until the Romulan threat was ended, once and for all. The Retribution shuddered as the small boarding party materialized in the heart of the Romulan installation, the acrid stench of disruptor fire and scorched metal filling their nostrils. Alarms blared, bathing the corridor in pulsing red light. Philip motioned to Mike and Samantha, his pulse rifle at the ready. They had to move fast. Romulan soldiers poured into the hallway, disruptors spitting deadly emerald bolts. The humans dove for cover, returning fire with precision bursts. Philip felt the heat of the energy beams sizzling past his face as he downed one Romulan after another. Samantha nodded, darting down a side passage as Philip and Mike laid down suppressing fire. The Romulans kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Philip's rifle clicked empty. He slammed in a fresh power cell, his hands slick with sweat. Suddenly a searing pain exploded in his shoulder. Philip cried out, staggering back as a disruptor bolt found its mark. Mike was at his side in an instant, dragging him to safety behind a bulkhead. "Hold on, Captain," Mike growled, fishing a med pack from his belt. "We're not done yet." Philip gritted his teeth as Mike applied the regenerative gel to his wound, the pain ebbing to a dull throb. He forced himself to his feet, scooping up his rifle. They had to buy Samantha more time. Rounding a corner, Philip found himself face to face with Commander Juno. The Romulan's disruptor leveled at his chest. Time seemed to slow, the sounds of battle fading to a distant hum. Philip raised his own weapon, his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over, Juno. Your Empire's plans, the red matter device. We know everything." To Philip's surprise, Juno lowered his disruptor, a haunted look in his eyes. "You think I don't know that? I've seen the horrors they're planning, the worlds they intend to conquer. And for what? Glory? Power? It's madness." Philip hesitated, confusion warring with suspicion. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to help you," Juno said, his voice low and urgent. "I have information, access codes, intel that could blow this whole thing wide open, but I need your word that you'll grant me asylum on Earth." Philip's mind raced. Could he trust Juno? The Romulan had hunted them across the stars, had been his sworn enemy. But the look in Juno's eyes, the desperation in his voice— "All right," Philip said at last, lowering his rifle. "I'll do it, but if you betray us—" Juno nodded, a grim smile on his lips. "I understand." Together they fought their way back to Samantha, Juno's knowledge of the base proving invaluable as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. At last, they burst into the data vault, Samantha's fingers flying across the console. "I've got it," she exclaimed, her face lit by the glow of the screen. "The Romulans' plans, their troop deployments, everything." "Then let's get the hell out of here," Philip said, his heart pounding as the sounds of Romulan reinforcements grew louder. They raced back to the beam-out point, disruptor bolts filling the air around them. Philip felt a surge of relief as the familiar tingle of the transporter enveloped him, the Romulan base disappearing in a swirl of golden light. Safely back aboard the Retribution, Philip watched as Samantha pored over the stolen data, her brow furrowed in concentration. Mike stood guard over a restrained Juno, the Romulan's face an unreadable mask. "It's worse than we thought," Samantha said at last, her voice trembling. "The Romulans, they're not just planning to conquer Earth. They want to enslave humanity, to use us as a labor force for their empire." A chill ran down Philip's spine. He had known the Romulans were ruthless, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Philip turned to Juno, his eyes hard. "You knew about this?" Philip's mind raced. They had the evidence they needed, but would it be enough? Could they convince the skeptical UEDF leadership to take action before it was too late? As the Retribution hurtled through the stars, Philip knew that the hardest battle was still to come. But with his crew at his side and the truth as his weapon, he would not rest until humanity was safe, once and for all. Philip strode into the United Earth Council chamber, his heart pounding in his chest. The evidence weighed heavily in his hands, data pads filled with damning proof of the Romulans' sinister plans. As he took his place at the center of the room, the eyes of Earth's leaders bore into him from every angle. "Esteemed council members," Philip began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment, "I come before you today with a dire warning. The Romulan Star Empire, our long-standing adversary, is plotting the conquest of Earth and the enslavement of humanity." A murmur rippled through the chamber, a mix of shock and disbelief. Philip held up the datapads, his gaze sweeping over the assembled councillors. "The evidence I present to you today was obtained at great risk, through the bravery and sacrifice of my crew, and an unlikely ally, a Romulan defector named Juno." Philip gestured to the former Romulan commander, who stood beside him, his head held high despite the suspicious glares from the council members. As Philip laid out the details of the Romulan plot, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted from skepticism to growing horror. He showcased the schematics of the red matter device, the plans for the subjugation of Earth, and the Romulans' ruthless expansion strategies. "They killed my dog, Max," Philip said, his voice cracking with emotion. "A loyal friend murdered in cold blood. But that was just the beginning. The Romulans will stop at nothing to crush humanity beneath their heel, to strip us of our freedom and dignity." Juno stepped forward, his voice ringing out with conviction. "I have seen the cruelty of my own people firsthand. I cannot stand idly by while they wage a campaign of terror and oppression against the innocent. I implore you, council members, to heed Captain Parker's warning and take action before it is too late." The council chamber erupted into a frenzy of debate, voices rising and falling as the leaders grappled with the enormity of the revelation. But as the evidence mounted and the testimonies continued, a grim consensus began to emerge. "The United Earth Council hereby declares a state of emergency," the council spokesperson announced, her voice heavy with solemnity. "We will mobilize the United Earth Defense Force and prepare for the defense of our world and our people. Captain Philip Parker, in light of your bravery and dedication, we bestow upon you the rank of Admiral and the command of a fleet of our most advanced warships." Philip stood tall, his chest swelling with a mix of pride and determination. "I accept this honor and this responsibility. I will not rest until the Romulan threat is vanquished and humanity is safe." As the council session adjourned, Philip found himself surrounded by a sea of reporters and well-wishers, their questions and accolades washing over him in a dizzying wave. But even amid the chaos, his mind was already racing ahead to the challenges that lay before him. In the days that followed, Philip threw himself into the preparations for the looming conflict. He oversaw the assembly of his fleet, hand-picking the most skilled and dedicated officers from across the United Earth Defense Force. The Retribution, now fully repaired and upgraded, served as his flagship, a symbol of humanity's resilience and determination. As the fleet drilled and trained, pushing themselves to the limits of their abilities, Philip found himself haunted by the spectre of war. He knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and sacrifice, that many lives would be lost in the battles to come. But he also knew that he could not falter, could not let the sacrifices of Max and countless other innocents be in vain. He would fight with every ounce of his strength, every fiber of his being, to protect the people and the ideals he held dear. Late one night, as Philip pored over the latest intelligence reports in his quarters aboard the Retribution, an encrypted transmission suddenly flickered to life on his console. The message was brief and cryptic, but its implications were staggering. "Admiral Parker," the distorted voice began, "we are a group of Romulan dissidents who oppose the tyrannical rule of our government. We have long admired your courage and your commitment to justice. We believe that together we can bring an end to the cycle of violence and oppression that plagues our peoples." Philip leaned forward, his heart racing as he listened to the dissidents' proposal. They offered to provide critical intelligence on Romulan fleet movements and military installations to sow chaos and discord within the ranks of the Romulan leadership. In exchange, they asked for Philip's support in their bid to overthrow the corrupt regime and establish a new era of peace and cooperation between their two species. Philip's mind reeled with the possibilities and the risks. He knew that aligning himself with Romulan rebels could be seen as a betrayal by some on Earth, that it could jeopardize his standing and his command. But he also recognized the opportunity to avoid a devastating war, to forge a new path forward for humanity and the Romulan people alike. With a deep breath, Philip made his decision. He would meet with the dissidents in secret, would hear them out and assess the merits of their plan. He would tread carefully, balancing the needs of his own people with the chance for a brighter future for all. As he prepared for the covert rendezvous, Philip couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the precipice of history, that the choices he made in the coming days would shape the course of the galaxy for generations to come. But he was ready to embrace that responsibility, to fight for a future free from the spectre of war and the shackles of oppression. For Max, for the brave men and women under his command, for the innocent lives hanging in the balance, Philip would not rest until the Romulan threat was vanquished and a new era of hope and unity could dawn. As Philip and his fleet carried out precise lightning-fast strikes on key Romulan military installations, the rebellion on Romulus Prime ignited like a supernova. Led by the magnetic and fearless Valoris, Romulan citizens flooded the streets, their voices raised in a thunderous chorus of defiance. Romulan soldiers, moved by the plight of their people, turned their weapons on their former masters and joined the swelling ranks of the resistance. In the heart of the Retribution, Philip pored over the latest intelligence reports, his brow furrowed in concentration. Valeris's face flickered on the view screen, her eyes alight with the fire of revolution. "Admiral Parker," she said, her voice crackling with urgency. "The time is ripe for a decisive blow. We must strike at the very heart of the Romulan regime, the Praetor himself." Philip nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. With Juno's intimate knowledge of the Romulan power structure and the dissidents' network of spies and saboteurs, they had a real chance to decapitate the Romulan leadership and bring a swift end to the conflict. "Agreed," he said, his voice steady with resolve. "We'll need to move fast and hit hard. Juno, Samantha, Mike, you're with me. We're going in." The strike team materialized in the shadows of the Romulan capital, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. Samantha's fingers flew across her holopad, disabling security systems and looping surveillance feeds. Mike took point, his plasma rifle at the ready, his eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. Juno moved with the fluid grace of a Romulan warrior, his knowledge of the city's secret passages and hidden entrances guiding them deeper into the heart of the enemy stronghold. At last, they stood before the towering gates of the Praetor's palace, its obsidian walls glittering in the harsh Romulan sun. Philip's hand tightened on the grip of his pulse pistol, his mind flashing back to that terrible moment when he had cradled Max's lifeless body in his arms. This was it, the moment of reckoning, the chance to make the Romulans pay for every drop of innocent blood they had spilled. With a fierce battle cry, the strike team surged forward, their weapons blazing. Romulan guards fell before their onslaught, their green blood staining the polished stone floors. Philip led the charge, his eyes fixed on the massive doors of the Praetor's throne room. They blasted through the reinforced metal with shaped charges, the detonations echoing through the cavernous halls like the wrath of an angry god. And there, upon his throne of bone and steel, sat the Praetor, his eyes cold and imperious. Philip leveled his pistol at the tyrant's head, his voice ringing out with the authority of a man who had seen too much, suffered too much. "It's over, Praetor. Surrender now and end this madness. No more Romulan aggression, no more innocent lives lost." The Praetor's lips curled in a sneer of pure contempt. "Arrogant human," he spat, his hand inching towards the disruptor at his side. "You think you can dictate terms to me, to the Romulan Star Empire? I would rather die than bow to your pathetic species." Time seemed to slow as the Praetor's hand closed around his weapon. Philip's finger tightened on the trigger, his heart pounding in his ears. But before he could fire, a green blur hurled itself at the Praetor, tackling him to the ground. It was Juno, his face contorted in a mask of determination and sacrifice. The two Romulans grappled on the floor, a tangle of straining limbs and flashing blades. And then, with a sickening crunch, Juno's body went limp, the Praetor's honor blade buried to the hilt in his chest. The Praetor staggered to his feet, his face twisted in a grotesque mockery of triumph. But his victory was short-lived. Philip's pistol barked, the plasma bolt searing through the Praetor's skull. The tyrant crumpled to the ground, his reign of terror ended in a single, blazing instant. Philip nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "I promise, Juno, your sacrifice will not be in vain." As Juno breathed his last, his lifeblood pooling on the cold stone floor, Philip felt a profound sense of loss and sorrow, but he also felt a flicker of hope, a glimmer of the possibility that had driven him all this way, the possibility of a galaxy where humans and Romulans could live in peace, united by their common dreams and aspirations. He rose to his feet, his gaze sweeping over the shattered remnants of the Romulan old guard. There was still much work to be done, many challenges to be faced, but with Valeris and the dissidents in control, with the Praetor's cruel reign at an end, Philip knew that they had taken the first crucial steps towards a brighter tomorrow. He activated his comlink, his voice steady with purpose. "Athena, this is Admiral Parker, mission accomplished. The Praetor is dead, and the dissidents have taken control of the government. We're coming home." As Philip and his team beamed back to the Retribution, leaving the smouldering ruins of the old order behind, he felt a profound sense of change sweeping across the galaxy. A new era was dawning, an age of hope and unity, forged in the crucible of shared struggle and sacrifice. And at the heart of it all, the memory of a loyal dog and a man's unbreakable bond, a love that had ignited the flames of revolution and brought an empire to its knees. Max's spirit, Philip knew, would live on forever, a shining beacon of the indomitable power of the human heart. Philip stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his eyes fixed on the view-screen as the sleek lines of Romulan warships glided past. In the days since the fall of the old regime, he had worked tirelessly with Valeris and the new Romulan leadership to forge a lasting peace between their peoples. The negotiations had been long and complex, with both sides struggling to overcome centuries of mistrust and animosity, but in the end they had emerged with a treaty that promised a new era of cooperation and shared prosperity. Ambassador Parker, Valeris said, her voice warm with respect as she strode onto the bridge. The final provisions of the treaty have been approved by the Romulan Senate. We are ready to begin the process of ratification. Philip nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Thank you, Valeris. I couldn't have done this without you. As the two leaders shook hands, sealing the historic agreement, Philip felt a surge of hope for the future. The sacrifices of Max, Juno, and so many others had not been in vain. Humanity and the Romulans would stand together, united against any threat that dared to challenge their newfound alliance. But even as the celebrations began, a dark cloud loomed on the horizon. In the shadowy corners of the Romulan Empire, a faction of hardline militarists, led by the ruthless Commander Sailor, seethed with rage at the new order. This treaty is a betrayal of everything the Romulan people stand for, Sailor snarled, her eyes flashing with cold fury as she addressed her followers. Philip Parker and his human allies have weakened us, made us vulnerable. We must act now, before it is too late. In secret bases and hidden strongholds, Sailor and her loyalists began to plot their revenge. They stockpiled weapons, recruited disaffected Romulan soldiers, and reached out to criminal syndicates and rogue alien factions, promising wealth and power in exchange for their support. And at the center of their plans was a series of devastating terrorist attacks, designed to sow chaos and fear across the galaxy. Human colonies, Romulan outposts, and key infrastructure would be targeted, all with the aim of undermining the fragile peace and plunging the galaxy back into war. As reports of the first attacks began to filter in, Philip felt a cold knot of dread form in the pit of his stomach. He had fought so hard, sacrificed so much, to bring about this new era of hope and cooperation. He would not let Sailor and her fanatics destroy it all. Turning to his crew, Philip's voice was hard with determination. We have a new mission. We must find Sailor and her followers, and stop them before they can do any more damage. We'll need to work closely with our Romulan allies, share intelligence, coordinate our efforts. As the Retribution and its sister ships leaped into action, racing to respond to the growing crisis, Philip knew that the stakes had never been higher. The fate of the galaxy and the dream of lasting peace between humanity and the Romulans hung in the balance. He thought of Max, of the loyal companion who had set him on this path so long ago. He thought of Juno, the Romulan warrior who had given his life to make this moment possible, and he thought of the countless lives, human and Romulan alike, that depended on him to see this through. Philip's jaw tightened, his resolve hardening into an unbreakable core. He would not fail them. He would hunt down Sailor and her followers to the ends of the galaxy, and he would not rest until the threat they posed was ended, once and for all. As the Retribution plunged into the depths of space, its sensors probing the void for any sign of the rogue Romulans, Philip stood tall on the bridge, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For the sake of all he held dear, he would fight, and he would win, no matter the cost. Philip's heart raced as he pored over the intelligence reports, his eyes scanning the holoscreens for any sign of Sailor and her rogue faction. The trail had gone cold after the last attack, a brutal assault on a joint human-Romulan research station that had left dozens dead and the facility in ruins. But now, after weeks of tireless intelligence gathering and covert operations, they had a lead. Athena had intercepted a coded transmission from one of Sailor's followers, hinting at a hidden base on the remote planet of Nelvana III. Philip turned to Valeris, who stood beside him, her face grim with determination. "This is it," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Our chance to put an end to Sailor's reign of terror." Valeris nodded, her hand resting on the hilt of her disruptor pistol. "My people are ready, Philip. We will fight alongside you, to the bitter end if necessary." As the Retribution and a small fleet of loyal Romulan ships dropped out of warp above Nelvana III, Philip could see the planet's desolate surface stretching out before them, a bleak expanse of rocks and dust. Somewhere down there, hidden beneath the barren landscape, was Sailor's stronghold. "Athena, scan for any signs of the base," Philip ordered, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The AI's response was immediate. I have detected a large subterranean structure, heavily shielded and fortified. It appears to be the source of the transmission. Philip turned to his assembled team, Mike, Samantha, and a hand-picked group of human and Romulan soldiers. All right, listen up. We're going in hard and fast. Our objective is to neutralize Sela and her followers and to gather any intel on her plans for Earth. Expect heavy resistance. As the strike force beamed down to the planet's surface, Philip felt a familiar surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. This was it, the moment of truth. The chance to avenge Max, Juno, and all the others who had fallen in the struggle against Sela's madness. The team moved quickly and quietly across the rocky terrain, their weapons at the ready. Suddenly the ground erupted in a hail of disruptor fire as Sela's forces emerged from hidden positions, their faces twisted with hatred and fanaticism. Philip dove for cover, his pulse rifle spitting plasma bolts into the enemy ranks. Beside him, Mike let out a roar of fury as he charged forward, his massive frame shrugging off the disruptor beams like raindrops. The battle raged on, a brutal, close-quarters fight that left the ground slick with blood and the air thick with the stench of burnt flesh. Philip lost track of time, lost track of everything, except the need to keep moving, keep fighting, keep pushing towards the heart of Sela's base. At last, they stood before the massive blast doors of the main compound, their armor scorched and their faces streaked with sweat and grime. Samantha stepped forward, her holopad already linked to the door's control panel. "I can override the lock," she said, her fingers flying across the keys. "But it'll take time." Philip nodded, his grip tightening on his rifle. "Do it, we'll hold the line." As Samantha worked, Philip and the others fought off wave after wave of Sela's troops, their ranks thinning with each passing minute. Mike fell first, his body riddled with disruptor burns. Then Valeris, her face contorted in a final snarl of defiance as she took a blade to the chest. Philip felt a cold rage rising within him, a fury born of grief and loss. He would end this here and now, for all those who had given their lives in the name of peace. The blast doors hissed open, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with Sela's most loyal followers, and there at the center of it all stood Sela herself, her eyes blazing with madness and hate. "Philip Parker," she spat, her disruptor leveled at his heart. "I knew you would come. You're too predictable, too weak, just like all humans." Philip said nothing, his rifle raised and ready. He would let his actions speak for him, let the fire of his vengeance burn away the last of Sela's twisted ambitions. With a roar of fury he charged forward, his weapon blazing. Sela met him head-on, her own disruptor spitting death and destruction. Around them the battle raged, human and Romulan locked in a dance of death and glory. Philip felt the bite of Sela's blade, felt the searing heat of her disruptor bolts, but he did not falter, did not yield. He fought on, driven by the memory of Max, of Juno, of all those who had fallen in the name of a better tomorrow. And in the end, as the smoke cleared and the last of Sela's followers lay dead at his feet, Philip stood victorious, his armor rent and his body battered, but his spirit unbroken. He looked down at Sela's broken form, her eyes staring sightlessly at the distant stars. The cost had been high, the sacrifices almost too much to bear. But in that moment, Philip knew that it had been worth it, that the dream of peace, of unity, was worth fighting for, no matter the price. He turned to the survivors, his voice raw with emotion. "It's over. Sela is dead, her followers scattered. We have won." But even as the words left his lips, Philip knew that the true battle was just beginning. The scars of war ran deep, the wounds of loss and betrayal still fresh. It would take time, take patience and understanding, to truly heal the rift between human and Romulan. With a heavy heart, Philip beamed back aboard the Retribution, the once mighty ship now battered and broken, a testament to the terrible cost of victory. As he stood on the bridge, watching the stars drift by, he knew that his mission was far from over, that the road to lasting peace would be long and fraught with peril. But he would not give up, would not rest until the dream of a united galaxy was made real. For Max, for Juno, for all those who had given their lives in the name of a better future, he would fight on, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. The Retribution limped back to Earth, a symbol of both triumph and sacrifice. As Philip stepped off the ship for the last time, he knew that his life had been forever changed, that the weight of his experiences, his losses, would never truly leave him. But he also knew that he had a new purpose, a new calling. No longer just a soldier, but a diplomat, a peacemaker, a bridge between two worlds that had been torn apart by hatred and fear. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.